Welcome back to another opening guide. Today we're looking at the Najdorf, which is one of the most popular openings that there is in chess. It's definitely something you should know and maybe something you'll consider to play. So this video is basically going to cover the main lines that there are and also teach you the more common ideas, so even if you get some sidelines, because there's many sidelines, you'll still know how to play. So let's begin. The Najdorf is an opening against e4 and it's in the Sicilian Defence, so c5, knight to f3, and now you play the move d6, d4, you take the pawn on d4, white will take, and now knight to f6. Here, they'll develop their knight, defend the pawn on e4, and you play the move a6. Now, to people who have never seen this opening before, or haven't seen ideas like these, this a6 is a very mysterious move because it seems like you're wasting time and it doesn't seem like you're getting a lot done. But the truth is, it's quite the opposite. This a6 move holds a lot of ideas. Firstly, you're stopping any of white's pieces from coming to b5, which is a very important square to stop because this b5 square is a very good square for the bishop to develop actively, for the knight to move often, and you'll actually see when this could have been important for white to use this square in the coming lines that I'll show you. But the b5 square is a very important line, a very important square to take away from your opponent here. And you know, often you'll play the move e5 to kick away the knight. And if they have the move knight b5 in that case, then there's going to be a lot of pressure on this pawn that's now going to be undefended by another pawn. And so by cutting off this b5 square, you're also making the move e5 a lot stronger. But a secondary purpose, not only defensive, is also to prepare the move b5. And typically, white is going to castle long in the Sicilian Defence, because typically black will castle short, and the Sicilian is known as a defense where often you're going to get opposite side castling where both players kind of go crazy and attack each other. So it's very nice to have this leading pawn here, so once your attack comes, you're going to be a lot faster. You're going to be able to play b5 immediately and then b4 with tempo. You're going to be able to support that with knights, with queens, with bishops, and you're going to be able to attack white's king quite quickly. Okay, let's begin to explore the lines. So bishop g5 is one option for white. It's one of the more aggressive moves, but honestly, it doesn't really threaten much. I mean, white doesn't really want to exchange the bishop for the knight because a pair of bishops is often better than a pair of knights. You can still play the move, for example, knight d7. So if they do exchange, your knight gets to a nice square on f6. But truly, I think, in my personal opinion, a better move would be even going e6 here, because I feel like knight to d7, although it's a perfectly fine move, and this is kind of when it comes to preference, I think that this move seems a bit more clustered. You know, for me, it seems like you're not getting much done. This bishop still can't get out, and it seems to block many of your pieces. But with the move e6, you're also preparing to develop the bishop, and you're gaining more control in the center, more space. So personally, I think e6 is the better move here, but I mean, this is when it comes to preference. Like I said, in the Najdorf, there's often going to be cases where there's even as much as a dozen good moves for you. So it's a very, very easy, kind of flexible and intuitive opening, in the sense that if you play anything that you think is intuitive, it's probably going to be an okay move. So with the move e6, and really with any move after bishop to g5, you really don't have to worry about much. Sometimes white might try to attack very quickly with the move, for example, f4, and then try to get their queen into the attack. But again, this is a pretty empty attack. It doesn't really threaten much. You can simply develop your bishop to e7. You can kick away the bishop with h6, for example. You can move your queen to b6 and move it into a more active square where it's attacking the pawn. There's many good moves, and once again, you know, there's always a lot of good options for you here. Also, for example, knight d7 is fine, trying to get to the c5 outpost, which is usually going to be a good square for you. The one thing about queen to b6 is that although it does put the queen in a nice aggressive square, once the pawn here gets resolved somehow, notice that the queen is kind of blocking the pawn. So often what I like to do is kind of delay the development of the queen, or maybe move it to c7, and then first go b5, and then put the queen under the pawn on b6. And this way, my pawn can kind of lead the attack and sacrifice itself so the queen can open up and get very nice files to attack along with the help of the rook and other pieces as well. But like I said, f4, you really shouldn't worry. I mean, if they try to attack with the queen as well, now, again, queen b6 is okay. It's kind of a fork. They can solve it with one move, so castling is fine here. And then again, the queen seems a bit misplaced, so I probably would recommend instead going, for example, to castle here, or going for h6, kicking away the bishop again, or going queen to c7. There's many good options here, but the big thing is not to worry about these very quick f4, followed by queen f3 with the bishop here attacks, because they're very empty. And again, even castling is perfectly fine in this position. Like I said, also h6 is something that I am sure that you've seen quite a lot in this video already, because h6, there's no reason to keep this bishop here. At least force it to make a decision where, it has to go back to h4, and then you can castle, and this also comes with the benefit of the king having some extra breathing room, and, there's no reason for this bishop to be here without you being able to win tempo, right? So h6, you win some tempo, you kick away the bishop, then you can castle. So h6 is also an idea to know against this bishop g5 move. So moving on to bishop e3, which has become a bit more popular lately. This move, the bishop is a bit less active here than it is on g5, but it serves the purpose of being centralized, looking at both sides of the board. That is why one very good option whenever the bishop lands on e3 is just knight g4, going for the bishop, very simply. And the knight on g4 is a very powerful piece, because if you manage to exchange the bishop, you might wreck the structure for white, but even if you don't, again, usually the pair of bishops is more powerful than the pair of knights, so that's typically going to be a good trade for you. And if they try to save the bishop, say bishop g5, well, then you can kick away the bishop a little bit with tempo and make room for your own bishop to develop very quickly. To a very nice diagonal as well, where if they ever castle, the bishop's aimed towards the king. So that is why, going back, a lot of times, so knight g4 here is a great move, and a lot of times you're going to see the move f3 being played by white. You might think that, this is a very mysterious move, but now it becomes hopefully a bit more clear. It's trying to stop the move knight g4, which, as I showed, it's a bit annoying. This bishop here is a very powerful piece. Additionally, f3 would prepare g4. So f3 is actually a good resource by white that you might sometimes see. Another option in this position instead of knight g4 is simply playing the move, for example, e6, making room for your bishop to develop and then trying to castle. You can also go e5 with the idea that, the knight can't come to b5 and put pressure on this weak and backwards pawn here on d6, because, of course, the pawn on a6 blocks that square. So e5 is a good option, e6 is a good option, knight g4, again, a lot of options here for you. And here, let's say they play f3, again, trying to now stop your knight from coming to g4. It's not really a big problem, just simply develop your bishop, get ready to castle. Moving along, so that is basically bishop e3. Aside from that, they can maybe play bishop e2 or really any other bishop move, but you really shouldn't fear any of these moves. You can, again, play a number of moves. e5, e6, knight to d7, even, for example, h6 if you want to be a bit more prophylactic here, stopping the bishop from coming to g5. And a common theme that you're seeing is that there's just so many options in these types of positions, and really any intuitive move that achieves something, develops a piece, gets ready to develop a piece, such as these e-pawn moves, or stops a piece from coming in. Any of those moves are typically going to be very good here. And then, bishop c4, the only thing about c4, which I'll specifically mention, kind of aside from any other bishop move, is that with the bishop on c4, it is aimed at f7. And so if we go back, for example, to the first move, actually, if you play e5, often this will lead to bishop c4, and in which case this f7 pawn is going to be a very long-term weakness for you, because you can never play e6 and blunt the bishop. Whereas with the Najdorf, and really with any Sicilian, if they ever play bishop c4, simply e6 makes this bishop look very sad and silly here. It doesn't really have much of a target, and I mean, this is a move that you want to play anyways to develop your bishop and castle. So for the most part, that's the important lines that are maybe specific, that you need to know specific ideas for. But other than that, your general ideas, as I've mentioned throughout this video, is to eventually play e6, e5, develop this bishop. There are cases like I showed where the bishop would come to g7 as well. And then you can castle kingside often. You can then develop your knight to d7 or to c6 at some cases. And with c6, if they take, then you can take with the pawn sometimes, and therefore open up this b file. And so once your queen comes to b6, it's more powerful because it can be supported with a rook, whereas right now it would be blocking the pawn and the rook could not support it. And then, I mean, b5, b4 is, of course, an idea here as well for you, and you're going to have a very fun time attacking in this position. So that is, for the most part, going to wrap up the video for today. There's too many lines to cover in the Najdorf. Practically any move here for white that is not plain ridiculous, like king to e2, is going to be a legitimate line. If there is a specific line that you want me to kind of analyze and go over, then leave it down below, and I'd love to type up a response about that line. But for the most part, you know, the ideas that I've shared here are quite universal in this opening. So against any response here by white, you should be fine if you play any of those moves that I showed previously. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully you guys learned and now can maybe try this very classic opening that, again, almost every Grandmaster has played. Thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure you guys subscribe for more content like this, and I will see you guys next time. Peace out.